Supreme Court judges landed colourful phrases, partly calling intriguing happenings at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, a boardroom rupture, and in a twist of irony, the hitherto chronic chaos associated with elections in Kenya switched sides as the electoral management body IEBC turned into a chaotic theatre of political divisions. Kenya came close to having two contrasting presidential election results when IEBC commissioners split into two teams addressing the nation at the same time live on television. As IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati announced presidential election results at the Bomas of Kenya, IEBC Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera led three other commissioners to the city centre where they rejected the result at a press conference. Tonight, Sam Gituku knocks the doors and taps the walls for clues into the 7 days of rupture at the IEBC, where 7 commissioners engaged in an unprecedented electoral war.
Everything happened so quickly. In fact, I keep telling myself I need to sit down and recollect it.
We therefore cannot take ownership on the results that is going to be announced.
He was ignoring me, and I was just telling him, Chairman, you can't do this, Chairman. You cannot do this. We had an agreement. We had already agreed on the modus operandi on how you're going to do this.
August 15th, 2022, the 7th day after the general election, the country had been waiting for the announcement of the presidential election outcome.
And I called my candidate and I told him, we have this invitation, but kindly allow me to verify the results before you come. That was the same time when the chairman was nowhere to be found.
On the 15th, I hadn't seen him that day, but I know that the chief agent went into the meeting. And the meeting was with him.
But the event at the Bomas of Kenya was quickly turning into a hazardous political powder keg.
We were at the brink. If you imagine if the election was not announced, what would have happened? And that was the last day we will have breached the constitution. So what will be holding this country will be outside of the constitution.
Bomas was a meltdown live on television. But the genesis dates back several years before the 2022 general election. For 3 years, 4 months, the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission had existed with just 3 commissioners following the sudden resignation of Dr. Roslyn Akombe in October 2017, and then Vice Chair Conin Kada, Ambassador Paul Kurgat, and Margaret Mwachanya in April 2018. Their main bone of contention was that they lacked faith in Chairman Chebukati.
Given this severe deterioration of confidence in the Commission Chair, we find our position as commissioners under his leadership no longer tenable. 10
days before they quit, the Commission had suspended Ezra Chiloba from the CEO position following investigations into the 2017 elections. The 3 commissioners disowned Chebukati's decision.
For far too long and way too many times, the Commission Chair has failed to be the steady and stable hand that steers the ship in difficult times. The removal of a Commission CA Secretary is a weighty matter and is one that should not have been introduced as a by the way.
These 3 commissioners were not happy that we are doing an audit. They opposed the audit of the procurement for elections. And they didn't want us to ask the CEO any questions, or rather ask him to account, because the CEO is an accounting officer of the organization. All procurement is under him. It's a responsibility which is not shared with another person. The work of the commission is to do policy, strategy, and oversight.
4 months later, the then President Uhuru Kenyatta was yet to acknowledge receipt of resignation letters, and the 3 attempted to resume office. Their efforts ended futile.
If they didn't like the chairman, so why try to come back again? So these are individuals who perhaps were under instruction from some external forces.
The 3 other commissioners held fort and didn't resign. So 4 resigned. And then there were many calls by Kenyans that the 4 vacancies must be filled. And only when it was 12 months to the election is when the then president saw it fit to establish a selection panel.
The Chebukati 3, together with the then acting chief executive officer and current CEO Marjan Hussein Marjan, embarked on reforming the commission, informed by the 2017 election. The now tighter boardroom seemed to thrive in a rare unity of purpose in a previously stormy boardroom.
We have set up systems which are now in place. Internally, it's a matter of following the systems in place. External challenges like funding and interferences, of course, they'll always be there. But whoever comes here as a commissioner from political party will have to follow the systems which have been put in place. The policies and manuals are operational. It's about you and the constitution and the people of Kenya. Right. And I hope that these individuals, if they come, will have to realize that their loyalty is to the people of Kenya.
For years, the Commission Chair Wafula Chebukati had appealed to Parliament's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to intervene and unlock a stalemate occasioned by the failure of then-President Uhuru Kenyatta to declare the IEBC vacancies and thus cause a recruitment process of new commissioners.
If you remember, there was the Chebukati must go calls that were being made. And then there was pressure on 4 commissioners to quit because they wanted basically to redo the commission. That didn't succeed.
And then in 2019, the government tabled before the House a bill reorganizing the selection panel that became law in October 2020. President Kenyatta declared the vacancies on 14th of April 2021, 3 years late. The selection panel comprised 4 picks by the Parliamentary Service Commission, shared between the Jubilee Party, led by President Kenyatta, and Raila Odinga-led ODM. The panel was led by Dr. Elizabeth Muli, deputized by James Awori, both nominated by the Parliamentary Service Commission. Gideon Solonka and Elizabeth Mayo were also picked by PSC. Mayo later headed Raila Odinga's presidential campaign secretariat as its chief executive officer in 2022. In August 2021, President Kenyatta nominated the now famous Cherera 4 to be IEBC commissioners from a list of 8 persons shortlisted by the panel. The 4 were vetted and sworn into office by the Chief Justice on 2nd September 2021.
They seemed to me, when we had meetings with them, that they were working very well together.
Before their arrival in the boardroom, the Chebukati 3 had attempted to recruit a new CEO to replace Ezra Chiloba. Several petitions had been filed in court, stopping the process.
We tried to recruit CEO several times. Of course, the interested parties outside always send somebody to court to stop us on filthy ground. It's just another way of saying don't recruit.
Right. Until
we get our commissioners here who will recruit for us our CEO of interest.
I, Marjan Hussein Marjan.
6 months into the job, the now full commission settled on Marjan Hussein Marjan, who had been acting as CEO since 2018, to execute the full mandate. Around the same time, the commission appointed long-serving election official Ruth Kulundu to deputize Marjan, responsible for operations. In May 2022, Obadiah Keitani was appointed the deputy CEO in charge of support services, completing the process of top-level appointments ahead of the general election. All top 3 had been at the commission for more than 5 years each. By the time the 4 new commissioners arrived at IEBC, most of the procurement decisions for strategic election materials had either been concluded or were in the final stages of confirmation, presided by the Marjan-led secretariat. The commissioners further took various leadership roles. Vice Chair Juliana Cherera took up Voter Education Committee, Professor Abdi Guliye the Election Operations Committee, and Justice Nyang'aya the ICT Committee. Commissioner Boya Molu retained the chairmanship of HR and Administration Committee, Francis Wanderi Finance and Supplies Committee, while Irene Masit chaired the Legal and Compliance Committee.
Before the election, we didn't think there was a division for real, because even when we were inviting them to come and clarify things, the vice chair used to represent the chair, and we thought they were one and the same thing. We were all shocked to see a division of the commission of that magnitude and that nature.
For me, it wasn't obvious. When we've had several meetings with them, it wasn't obvious. They seemed to be working very well. Just as Nyaganya seemed to be on top of his game, because I think he was in charge of ICT, and he used to give us briefings. The chairman was constantly giving us also briefings. So all together, they seem to be working as a team.
Commissioner Nyang'aya would later, in an affidavit filed at the Supreme Court, claim that he was reassigned to manage VIP's protocol instead of his key role in ICT. Some of the Cherera 4 commissioners alleged in the affidavits that Chebukati had assigned election operations duties at the tallying center to chosen senior officials instead of sticking to official designations. The first signs of division emerged when Vice Chair Juliana Cherera complained of being kept in the dark of the arrival of ballot papers until the eve of the D-Day. In a subsequent press conference, Chebukati paraded the commissioners to explain who had an issue.
Management informed us at 8 p.m. last night, and I informed the commissioners that the ballot papers are arriving. So if there's any commissioner who has told you otherwise, I would like them to come forward and maybe state what they mean by that.
There is nothing that we are going to put under the carpet. Indeed, the management does their part, and the commission deals with policy and supervisory of everything that happens.
The now so-called Cherera 4 had no role in IEBC, even at an early stage. I don't know whether that is called a divide, but my own observation is that they were essentially an escort team. You know, they were escorting the other three.
On the eve of the election, IEBC announced that there was a mix-up in the printing of ballot papers for some electoral areas, requiring postponement of Kakamega and Mombasa gubernatorial elections and 3 constituency elections.
Ballot papers for Mombasa County Governor position have wrong gubernatorial candidates' pictures and their details printed on them. 3 ballot papers for Kachiliba constituency have wrong member of National Assembly candidates' pictures and their details printed on them. 4 ballot papers for Pokot South constituency have wrong member of National Assembly candidates' pictures and details printed on them. As a result, elections for the respective positions have been suspended to a later date that will be announced through a Gazette notice.
If you are at Windsor, you know, Professor Gulia spoke like he was the salesman of the printers of the ballot papers. He spoke as though he was actually a salesperson of that company, and he spoke so well of them and how they were going to do an impeccable job. And eventually, they come out the day before the election and say, these people messed up. We are not going to have elections in Kakamega, no election in Mombasa.
Some of the Cherera 4 commissioners told of how Chebukati had unilaterally given instructions on the affected elections. The same pattern, they claimed, extended to the rescheduling of by-elections for affected areas, which had to be postponed once. At the conclusion of voting on the 9th of August, 46,229 polling stations kicked off the counting of votes and subsequently sent in scanned images of the results declaration forms. For 6 days and nights, the Bomas of Kenya was the center of attention. The 2 main presidential election camps kept vigil.
We were also compiling our own records, so we were still doing our own compilations while we were there.
So the command center was supposed to verify whether the forms that we are getting from our agents are the same in the portal. But like I said, the command center completely collapsed. So we were not getting any feedback from our command center. So at IEBC, we were basically verifying, we were just confirming IEBC against IEBC, which was an exercise in futility.
Some nights and days were chaotic as suspicion took the better part of politicians.
Things began to change towards the last 3 days. I remember a police officer, whom I do not even know his name, walked up to me and told me, please do not leave this building. If you do, they will arrest you, but you're not going to be taken to the police station. And that's when I made the decision to stay in Bomas. And in fact, I remember during that time, someone walked up to me and says, oh, Honorable Murkomen is looking for you, he's out calling you outside. I didn't go. And then someone else came again and said, Honorable Murkomen is looking for you. And I said, I ignored him. And so someone asked me, why aren't you going, Gladys? I said, that doesn't make sense. Of course, Murkomen is not calling me. He has my phone number. And if he wanted to see me, he'd walk into the building. So obviously, they were trying to lure me out of Bomas.
It is during that 2-3 days that we strongly believe a lot was being cooked. And that is when the results were tinkered.
At some point, it was almost 3 in the morning, my driver called me. He was sitting in the car, and he tells me that there are some people who want to search the vehicle. And so I told him, don't tell them the owner has to be present, but don't say it's me. My driver said to them, he is coming, referred to me as if I was a man. And so they left. Obviously, what they wanted to do is lure me to my car. They said that my car had suspicious materials in it. That's why they wanted to search it. Obviously, they were going to arrest me. I think they were desperate. Some people believed that I had a way of playing with the results, which is not even true.
A lot of issues we were raising were being ignored by the people who were supposed to address them.
On the morning of Monday, 15th of August, the country was on day 7 since the election day. There was confusion whether the 7 days allowed for tallying results included the voting day or could extend to the 16th of August.
On the 15th of August, from 9 a.m., we gathered senior religious leaders of different formations at a Dominions Day, a Catholic institution in Karen. And we are monitoring, that was our situation room where we are monitoring the elections.
I arrived at the Bomas of Kenya at 9 a.m. I'd actually just had a long conversation with Governor Ali Hassan Joho, and we agreed to meet there so that we can be able to go and be part of the event. We were very optimistic that we were going to be able to emerge victorious.
I saw many people from Azimio streaming in, and they were very upbeat. So I remember asking one of them, why are you so happy and you've lost? Then they said, no, it's a runoff. Then I asked the next one. They said the same thing, it's a runoff. Then I asked a third person, and he said it's a runoff, and a fourth. So I thought, what's happening? So I decided to go and look for Honorable Kithure Kindiki, who was our chief agent, because he had gone into the meeting with IEBC. So I asked him, what did they tell you in there? Did they confirm our figures? He said, yes, they did. Then I said, but why are these Azimio saying that there's a runoff? He told me there's no such thing.
By around 11:30, we reached a consensus that we need to have a team among us to go to physically Bomas and request to be given time to pray before the announcement, just to lead the country in God's hands, that whatever the announcement is going to happen, God will take charge of the nation and give us peace.
The country remained glued to the screens, but as time passed, the wait grew longer.
When I got to Bomas, I got to around 11, I got a notice that the results will be declared at 3 p.m. So I went to the chairman's office to ask the chairman, 3 p.m. is not too far, and I know these results are bulky. Could you kindly now give us our forms to look at before the time for verification? When I went to his office, I couldn't find him. I found the vice chair, who said they are also waiting for the chairman. And they also didn't have the final results, even though they were supposed to be declaring them in the next 2-3 hours.
I think I saw him the day before, is when he came on stage to make the announcement, to tell us that we have to speed up the verification process.
Nobody seemed to know where Wafula Chebukati was.
Bwana Chebukati alisema alfajiri ati yeye amechoka, ameenda nyumbani kwake kwenda kupumzika.
The chair took our call and said, I am yes, today the announcement is going to happen at 3. So then you are free to come, and we ask him to give us clearance into Bomas, which he said there's no problem. So as we headed to Bomas, the chair requested that we stop over and offer prayers for him at home before he proceed to Bomas. And we consulted, what could it be? We did not even know where he stayed. But later he informed us that he can give us somebody to lead him, and we said, if somebody is calling for prayers, we have to go and pray with him.
In his affidavit to the Supreme Court, Chairman Chebukati detailed how an eventful day, 15th of August, was. He claimed meeting former Busia Senator Amos Wako in the company of Azimio Executive Director Raphael Tuju and Advocate Chalo Mbobu. He puts the time at 3 a.m., saying that Tuju had made several attempts to find him to discuss the tallying and results.
The following morning, when I came and I insisted I was going to see him, he had issued instructions to a senior police officer by the name Samuel Arap Kimeo, who actually physically blocked me from trying to get into IEBC proceedings at Bomas of Kenya that day.
Chebukati claimed that in a meeting of all commissioners, Senator Wako told them they must consider the link between the election results to be declared and the stability of the country, which he described to be the bigger picture. Chebukati claimed that Commissioners Juliana Cherera, Irene Masit, Francis Wanderi, and Justus Nyang'aya agreed that Wako's statement should be put into consideration in arriving at the final results, to the opposition of Commissioners Abdi Gulie and Boya Molu. Chebukati claimed in his affidavit that later that day at 10 a.m. he learned that a delegation from the National Security Advisory Committee had been seeking audience with him, that he called for a meeting, scheduling it for 2 p.m. that day, during which CEO Marjan was to brief on the final presidential election results. All this time, the Bomas auditorium remained a large choir, oblivious of the behind-the-scenes activities between political players and the commission. Chebukati named 4 senior officials as comprising the NSAC delegation. They were Kennedy Kihara, the Principal Administrative Secretary at the Office of the President, Solicitor General Kennedy Ogeto, Police Inspector General Hilary Mutiambai, and Vice Chief of Defense Forces Francis Ogola. Chebukati stated that only Kihara spoke at the meeting, though the message was that if Chebukati declared the final election results with William Ruto as the president-elect, the country was going to burn. Chebukati told that the dissenting 4 commissioners stated the message warranted serious consideration and that they supported adoption of the NSAC communication before taking a decision as to the results to be announced. Commissioners Gulie and Molu, according to the chairman, never endorsed the NSAC message, instead opting for what the results would show. Chebukati says the NSAC team left at 3 p.m.
And I did see them actually.
You did?
I saw several of them, yes. I couldn't understand what they were doing. One was the Army General, and I asked myself, what is the Army General doing? In,
Which day was this?
On that last day.
15?
Yeah, yes, I saw General Ogola. I remember seeing the gentleman who was also the head of the Presidential Delivery Unit, Wakahyu. And I also asked myself, he's not an agent, he's a public servant. What is he doing here?
In the affidavit, however, Chebukati failed to account for his whereabouts for several hours on the 15th. Anglican Church Archbishop Jackson Olesapit had been in touch with Chebukati.
Very tense. He was just walking across the sitting room. The wife and the daughter were in distress, and all what we did was, we never asked the details what was happening, but we can see the agitation. So we prayed, and then he said, we can now go to Bomas together. He was in need of that prayer.
This was a man who had spent several hours of the previous night at the Bomas of Kenya in meetings. A man who had been informed of an NSAC delegation seeking his audience.
That was our major concern, and even our major worry. We were asking ourselves, at this hour, why was he not in Bomas? But because he did not know the details, he did not disclose to us any details. All what we did is to offer prayers to a man in distress.
Chebukati rode in the motorcade of the religious leaders to the Bomas of Kenya.
The chairman, I think, came at around that 3 or 5 minutes to 3 and came in with one copy of the entire bundle, which is about this much, and told us as the chief agents, national chief agents, the four national chief agents, these are the results, you know, you look at them and sign.
Then Chebukati said that he did not have a copy and he did not have time. He's got the constitutional duty and the constitution timeline, and the best thing for Seth about to do is to sit down there and sign.
So it became now a very, like, you know, being treated like school children, where these are the rules, follow them.
I said, I know that you are the returning officer for the presidential election, but you've got a team of commissioners. Where are your other 4 commissioners? Where are they? He said, you're right. That is the only time that Chebukati actually spoke to me. He said, you're right. I'm the returning officer of the presidential candidates, and I'm going to declare the results. I said, fair enough. But don't you think that it would be fair and it would be much acceptable for you to be accompanied by your commissioners so that you can be able to win the confidence of Kenyans? He said, no, I have no time. I don't know where they are.
I'm the national returning officer of presidential election.
But you are also not IEBC. The IEBC is composed of 7...
So if you are not signing the result, this business is finished, you will get copies.
I will sign if you give me the chance to verify. If you give me the chance to verify and we agree that these are the results, I will sign.
You will be given if verified.
Before you announce.
Mr. Chebukati, do you really want to ban this country?
Listen to me.
I will listen to you, but you need to listen to me as a leader as well, as a Kenyan and a voter. Do you really want to go and ban this country?
Now, when I was walking out of the room that Chebukati was seated at, I happened to see my former colleague, the current Speaker of the National Assembly, seated right at the doorstep. Then I said, and at that point, it literally evaporated for me that Weta is no longer a NASA principal. He is now a Kenya Kwanza principal or whatever. It didn't really, you know, all of a sudden I just saw him and it was deja vu all over again. It's like 2017. I said, hey, and I looked at him and I said, my friend, you know, I mean, you know what these people did to us in 2017. Why would you want them to do that to us again? In fact, I spoke to him as if he was one of us. Then Weta looked at me and he said, why are you talking to me? Apparently, next to Weta was William Ruto, but I didn't see him. Yes, I didn't see William Ruto. The only other person that I saw was Mudavadi. And then next, on the other side of the seats, I saw my good friend, the former governor of Machakos, Alfred Mutua. And then next to him was the current Speaker of the Senate, Amason Kingi. So I looked at them, I almost got disoriented. So I looked around and I just said, you know what, it's okay. You know, because I didn't see anyone who was from our coalition.
We were just seated, actually. And, you know, in that room, we were being informed of what was happening because we are not accessible to the screen. We were just in the room. And we are not seeing what was happening in the rest of Bomas.
Some of us didn't even know that some of the commissioners have decided to go their own way.
At this time, Chebukati's meeting room had been overrun by politicians. 4 commissioners had left the Bomas of Kenya.
Close to 3, they came walk by us. They greeted us and they walked away. To us, we thought they are going to where the chair was so that they all come together because you did not see the chair at that point.
When you saw them making the announcement, they had left shortly before that. They left for Cherera.
As you can see, the 4 of us, we are here, not at Bomas of Kenya, where the results is going to be announced because of the opaque nature of how this phase has been handled.
And I remember I was waiting near the door. The family of the president-elect at that time had already come in and settled down. I was waiting at the door for the president-elect to arrive. And so I thought to myself, okay, let me wait for him to arrive, and then I'll usher him in, and then I can go away.
When they were coming out of that room where they were supposed to sign, now the commotion was there. There was a push from the Azimio team that you cannot announce a bungle election. We are not going to allow you to do that. And there was another team pushing Chebukati and the 3 commissioners and the CEO forward that they must come and announce. And we are all seated, helplessly there, and seeing commotion and people. And when they came, it became evident that, it's a fracas ensuing.
Even when he came out, you must have seen on TV, on the screens, I kept insisting to him. I was telling him, Chairman, I need to be able to verify the results before you announce. That is what we agreed. I was basically just asking him to do what he had committed to doing. And also to follow the law, because there's a role of, the agents have a role.
It looked like just a verbal standoff until
the throwing of the podium into the floor. People were hitting each other with their chairs, and ourselves were, we got ourselves in the melee, and then we went behind the curtain.
So when I went down, people started beating me up, saying, "Hooah, hooah, hooah." And to tell you the truth, at that particular point, I was carrying money in my pocket to go pay for my daughter's school fees.
What you would even call violence was violence meted on now our team. Because I was mobbed by UDA fans. Because at some point, our people left. Our team left, and we were left, just the 2 of us, and with Olekina, and I think maybe 1 or 2 other people. And there were people baying for our blood, and some of us don't know how to run away.
Because I fell twice. The first time was when someone tripped me. The second time, now when I was coming up, someone came with a big chair and just hit me. Pop! Over here. I went down. Going down, I now started saying, look, I don't care whether this money goes or what. My life is more important. So I just jumped up. And I just now started waving my rungu like this, like this and this. So I came up, guys were hitting me, members of parliament that I know, my own colleagues were, and I'm like, Jesus, this is ridiculous. I could die here, So then, adrenaline just kicked in.
Walikuwa wako na hamu sana ya kunivamia, lakini nafikiri macho yangu kidogo ikakuwa ni moto kidogo kama ya simba. Ikawa wanakuja tu wanasimama. Hata sijui ni kwa nini walikuwa wanasimama. Maana mimi nilikuwa naangalia tu namna hii, nawaambia mtu asiniguze. Wanakuja tu wanasimama wote, wananizunguka namna hii. Bahati pia Murkomen, waziri sasa ambaye ndio wa uchukuzi, ni muungwana sana. Ule ni muungwana sana. Manake alikuja sasa pia akanizingira. Akaambia wale wacheni, hakuna haja ya kujeruhi mtu ama nini.
When I was coming up, there was a guy who had a gun, and I have those pictures, you'll be shocked. Slapped me, literally hit me. If I wasn't a strong guy, those guys would have killed me there.
Mimi pia ningelimana kama mtu angelilima. Ile mtu angeniguza nafikiri waliona hiyo. Bila mtu hakuna mtu angeniguza naende bila kusikia hiyo uzito fulani.
GSU came running. So there were like almost 6 of them coming. And then they were like trying to beat. One of them tried to beat me. I told him, if you beat me, I will follow you up to where you come from. Then he said, no, Mheshimiwa, no, it's okay. I told him, no, I'm walking out peacefully. I'm not attacking anybody.
All what you could hear is, exchange of blows and things being thrown out and in.
So when I finally got up, I wasn't feeling any pain at all. And I asked myself, I'm doing all these things for the truth. And instead of people trying to understand that this is for the truth, they want to kill me. I walked out of there, wasn't feeling any pain in my body. You could even pinch me and I'll not feel anything.
Bishop Rotich broke his glasses, and you know, the lady who is in the leader, the one to pray for the Hindu Council, fell down on our feet. So we were struggling to get her up, and Bishop Rotich, you know, could not now see without his glasses. So we are, as a team now, as a group, we are struggling to move behind that curtain.
I was whisked away. I was basically evacuated by police officers. In the end, I think I was the last person to be thrown out of the plenary just before the final result was made. So there was violence, but the violence that was there was actually violence against the Azimio people.
The Azimio team were removed out of Bomas, or they removed themselves. I did not see how they went out myself.
I just remember running on stage because my panic was, suppose the announcement is not made. You know, it's important for the announcement to be made. Then there is the law doesn't give us what to do should the announcement not be done within the 7 days. So in my head, my mind was racing, you know, that what will happen if the announcement is not made. So I almost was going on stage to make sure that the announcement is made. Not that I had any power over it, but that was my instinct, you know.
Then we are told, you know, we can go back to our seats by the security agencies who are manning Bomas. And we came in. The next thing we saw is, you know, the entry of now the current president coming in and his team. The whole of Bomas turned yellow. Before that, it was, you know, it was dotted.
With the calm restored, IEBC chairman joined the already seated UDA presidential candidate and his running mate. Chebukati's two commissioners and CEO were not in sight, having suffered injuries.
The mic was handed over to me by Gabo himself and said, Bishop, come and pray. So it was at that moment, you know, our minds are all confused. But I thank God because the mic did not work in the first instance. So when I was trying to listen, the mic was working, is when you know, I was also listening to God. What should I say? And I said, before I pray, I will make a short statement. And that's when I said, this is the moment Kenya has been waiting for. The nation has been anxious, but we want to urge all Kenyans, let us now put our anxiety aside. Then I prayed, and I only simply asked God, you know, even when we push ourselves to the brink, you always know how to lift us up. Lord, we want to ask you, please give us our country back. It's almost going. I
was in such a state of panic. Again, it was one of those days when you're not listening to the prayer. It's a bad thing. But I was too nervous to even concentrate on the prayer. All I knew is that I needed him to finish praying quickly.
A shaken chairman performed what he called his constitutional duty.
And for those who will come, we have prepared for you what the Constitution envisaged from us. An Independent Electoral Commission.
In subsequent days, the Cherera 4 consolidated their dissenting opinion, offering explanations why Chebukati's figures were in error.
Yale mahesabu hayaingiani. Ni vipi unaweza kusema umepata asilimia 100.01? Sote tulienda shule. Na tukiangalia 0.01, ukiangalia katika valid votes, hiyo ni kura 1140. Hizo kura, tukiangalia jinsi mchakato umeendelea, ni kura nyingi sana ambazo zinaweza kuleta tofauti. Sasa sisi tumesema yale makosa kama hayo hatukuhusishwa. Kwa hivyo
the sad bit is that all the new commissioners were put together against the old commissioners, which, you know, raises a very unanswered question. Why could that happen? Is it that, you know, the old commissioners had a way of doing things which they did not involve these ones, and these ones were kept, you know, in the dark?
4 months later, Commissioners Juliana Cherera, Justus Nyang'aya, and Francis Wanderi have since resigned following their suspension and formation of a tribunal to remove them from office. Commissioner Irene Maset is set to face the tribunal, seeking to clear her name.
I personally wish they had not resigned. I personally wish they had the courage to stand before that tribunal and speak some of the things that need to be brought out in the public about the goings-on at IEBC. I think they're running away.
And as they left, the three commissioners alluded to Chebukati's style of leadership, blaming him for all the resignations that have happened since he took the helm of the commission.
One, they were new. They found these other ones had been there for nearly 4 years or 5 years, you know. These four guys were appointed last year. But also, perhaps, you know, it's always harder to beat someone who has a plan when you have no plan, you know.
As religious leaders, we try to meet both groups to ask, to understand why are the differences and what is happening. Unfortunately, they were not able to disclose. None of the group was able to tell us what are their point of departures and what are their differences. Only that each team maintained that whatever list they had is the correct list. And whatever results they have is the correct results.
The IEBC CEO in September issued his deputy Ruth Kulundu with a letter of interdiction citing events around the election. Kulundu was reinstated by a court order pending hearing and determination of the dispute.
This, of course, will be my last election to preside over.
The term of Chebukati and the two commissioners expires on 17th of January 2023. With Cherera gone and Chebukati going, the guns will shortly fall silent at the IEBC, effectively marking the end of one of the ugliest seasons in the history of electoral management in Kenya. Sam Gituku, Citizen TV.